Hello and welcome to Dream Deals. On tonight's show, Richard Hammond takes to the track to find out if the latest Maserati 3200 GT can live up to expectations. Plus we'll be looking at perhaps the ultimate dream deal, a Ferrari 456. But first, it's time to find out how good the latest incarnation of a true motorsport legend handles. There are many cars that claim to be true sports cars, but how many can point to a heritage as rich as that of the BMW M3? Over the years, this car, or versions of it, have won more national races and championships than any other competition saloon. This is the third generation M3. Visually, this latest M3 is much more aggressive than its predecessor. Sitting on low-profile 18-inch tyres, the M3 is an inch wider than the average 3 Series, and at the front there is an enlarged air intake with spoilers front and rear. Overall, the new M3 looks fitter, faster and perhaps more importantly, meaner than ever. But unlike most other sports cars, the M3 is remarkably practical, although obviously being based on the 3 Series obviously helps. In there's enough room for all of the family, providing of course you've only got 2.2 children, and the boot is cavernous for even the most demanding of shopping trips. But looks and badge will only get you so far, so as we always say, the car looks great, will it go great? Well, actually, you and I both know that it goes great, but somebody's got to do it. One of the criticisms of the Mark II M3 was that it had lost some of that sporting prowess that the original had in favour of comfort and sales. But what you can say about this latest generation M3 is that it combines both beautifully, performance and comfort. Performance for the M3 is quite amazing. The 3.2 litre 6-cylinder inline engine can push the car to 60 in just over 5 seconds. And should you be lucky enough to be on the autobahn, the M3 will go on to a limited top speed of 155 miles per hour, but somehow you know it could go a lot further. Now the M3 is more than just an engine, it is of course the overall package. For example, the steering is brilliant. It's responsive and direct and lets you feel every inch of the road. One of the most impressive things about this car is its versatility. It really is happy tootling along at low speeds in low gears. And you have to remind yourself that you do have 340 brake horsepower to play with, because anytime you want to, drop it down a gear or two and the car will take off. It's the most practical supercar I've ever been in. Demand for the original M3 was higher than expected, with around 16,000 models being sold. Its successor, the more polished Mark II, sold over 77,000, and this success looks like being matched by this latest M3. But with popularity come high residual values, so don't go expecting to find a cheap second-hand model, because you won't. Now the interior of the M3 is a bit more boardroom than lounge room. It's all black and leather, very typically BMW. But there are a few clues that you're driving something a bit special. The M is on the dash, on the steering wheel and on the gear stick. And at night when you've got your lights on, the gear stick illuminates with a nice little fancy pattern. What I really do like is the digital rev counter that tells you basically when the car is warm and ready to be driven hard. When you turn it on first thing in the morning, the red line only just goes up to 6,000 revs, indicating take it easy. But then when the car is warm like it is now, the red line is right up at 8,000 revs, which says one thing to me, and that's go. There are lots of things to get excited about in this car, but one of the most exciting is the sport button on the dash, which changes the car from a supercar into a more responsive supercar. Basically, it means that the throttle will react that little bit quicker. And the only danger is that once you've found the button and used it, you ain't going to put it back. Unless, of course, you're lending it to your grandmother, which I wouldn't advise, button or no button. All in all, it's easy to see why the M3 is so popular. Not only does it have incredible performance, handling and good looks, but it has that all-important sporting pedigree. And I think it's a real rival for the Porsche 911. So the only question remaining is what to do with the £21,000 that you've got left over.
Think Maserati, and you might recall their glorious history and pedigree. Or you may remember the 1980s when their cars were, frankly, well, a little bit ropey. Well, they did, didn't they? Let's be honest. But a wind of change swept through Maserati when the company went into receivership and was taken over by once arch-rival Ferrari. Out went the angular, unloved bi-turbos, and in came something that was far more fitting for a Maserati. Give a warm welcome, please, to the 3200 GT. Obviously, under Ferrari control, Maserati weren't about to produce cars to rival those from Maranello. So at a shade over £60,000, the 3200 GT is aimed squarely at the Porsche 911 Carrera 2 and the Jaguar XKR. In that kind of company, the Mazda really has to look the part, and the 3200 GT pretty much does. It's the work of Giorgetto Giugiaro, something like that, the fella anyway who penned the classic Ghibli and Bora 3 decades before. The design combines some retro elements with modern functions, and it is, though perhaps not as in your face as it might be, discreet. At the rear of the car are these boomerang LED light strips, not to everybody's taste. It does look very sleek overall and rather deceptively looks smaller than it actually is. At just over 4.5 metres long and 1.8 metres wide, it is in fact longer and wider than its rivals. So with that extra space, that does mean that the 3200 GT is actually a pretty practical 4-seater. And that's good because it means 4 people get to enjoy this sumptuous interior. Okay, so it's spacious and comfortable and it's got a nice interior and it looks pretty, but it is a Maserati, so it had better go. And it does. You can kind of tell it's not going to be slow when you read the specs. 3.2 litre bi-turbo V8, 320 brake horsepower, which means 0 to 60 just over 5 seconds, and a top speed, oh, I don't know, about 170 miles an hour. That should do. As always, though, it's more to do with the way it delivers that power. And it's actually quite a friendly process. It is an awful lot of oomph, and you can feel those turbos come in. It's not too gentle, light pressure nonsense. It's a proper boost, but it is controllable. Above all, despite being in supercar territory, the thing is manageable. I'm not saying it's too friendly and cuddly. It still feels fast and powerful, but it doesn't feel frightening, and it is very, very usable. I'd even think about going for the automatic. Think about it. Of course, having plenty of poke and looking reasonable has never been a problem for Maserati. Things like reliability and build quality, well, they have been a bit of an issue. So the factory have gone berserk trying to address images of quality. The thing does feel very well put together and like it ain't going to drop apart over the next 6 months. And to put the money where their mouth is, Maserati offer a fixed price for servicing every year of about 600 quid, which is actually pretty damn good. When it was first launched, not every motoring hat immediately went berserk saying it's the best handling Maserati ever, because frankly, well, maybe it wasn't. Now though, it does feel nicely tightened up. If anything, it'll always err slightly on the side of practicality and comfort, but it is still pretty sharp. The steering's lovely and direct, the brakes are superb. You can chuck the body weight of the car around very nicely around the centre. It feels very, very usable. With a bit of practice, you could be pretty damn quick in this thing. Finally, you can buy a Maserati that really is worthy of the legend. Because not only does the 3200 GT look great, the drive delivers as well. And with the new Spider launch later this year and a more powerful coupe to follow shortly after, the future is bright for Maserati.
BMW have always been renowned for producing high-quality saloon cars, which, although handle great, haven't always been the cars of your dreams. But in the Z8, they've produced a car that not only handles fantastically well, but it also looks stunning. Underneath the Z8's long flowing bonnet is a 400 brake horsepower 5-litre V8. The performance for the rear-wheel drive car is phenomenal, with the 0 to 60 dash being dispensed in around 4.5 seconds. The Z8's top speed, like all BMWs, is electronically limited to 155 miles per hour. Inspiration for the Z8's design came from the BMW's classic 1950 sports car, the 507. Like its forebearer, the Z8 has a long, sloping bonnet, upright windscreen and pronounced wheel arches. But perhaps the Z8's pièce de résistance is its interior. The dash is awash with polished aluminium leather and a steering wheel that can only be described as stunning. Combining modern technology with retro styling, the Z8 is perhaps one of the most beautiful roadsters on the market today. Now, the styling may be retro, but the technology certainly isn't. To try and make sure that even the most ambitious of drivers don't end up writing off their £80,000 dream machine, BMW have fitted a vast array of computer-controlled driving aids. Along with the usual ABS and traction control, there is also dynamic stability control and cornering brake control. So all in all, the Z8 is not only one of the quickest roadsters, but also one of the safest. Competition for the Z8 might seem quite limited, bearing in mind its price, but that couldn't be further from the truth. A top-of-the-range Jaguar XKR convertible and a Porsche 911 both cost considerably less than the Z8. Okay, so in terms of performance, the BMW is better than both, but the question that has to be asked is it any more desirable and therefore worth the extra money? Like many of the most desirable dream deals, production of the Z8 is going to be limited. Only 1,500 cars will be produced each year, and despite costing £80,000, there are sure to be plenty of willing buyers ready to part with their hard-earned cash just to get hold of a modern classic. Well, that's it for part 1, but join us after the break when we'll be putting the gentleman's supercar, the Ferrari 456, through its paces.
Hey Blondie, park the car and don't scratch it.
It'd be very rude not to. In the UK, if you want a motor that says you've made it, you'll probably pick a Porsche, Jag or a Merc. But in America, the car they all want to drive is a Lexus, the car that says, "You the man." So what better Lexus to be driving in the States than the latest one of them all, the SC430. And this is the first convertible to come from Lexus, and it's set to be their flagship model across the range. Now they claim that the purpose of the SC is to be the finest all-round luxury convertible in the world. In other words, it's the dog's pips without a roof.
We don't stop. 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 We don't.
Now the IS200 has shown us that Lexus can break away from their reputation as being manufacturers of luxury barges for sweaty fat cats. And with the small executive class still feeling shell shocked, they've now turned their guns onto the likes of the Jag XK8, Merc SL and Porsche 911. Now, if you're going to compete with the cream of Europe's convertibles, you can have only one engine, a V8. Well, Lexus have taken their 4.3 litre unit from the big GS and LS models and shoehorned it into the SC chassis. Now you'd think that 280 brake horsepower would be enough to make this car perform, but not content with that, they've also manufactured a new 5-speed intelligent automatic gearbox. Now what that's supposed to do is anticipate your gear changes and make them a lot smoother. Now whether it is manufacturer's flannel or not, I have got to say that the changes are extremely smooth, and when you put your foot down, the power is instant. Now when Lexus was designing the very first model all those years ago, they actually sent a team of Japanese designers to an American country club. Now this was so that they would feel like their eventual customers, young American executives. Now whether that meant that they became very rude, lost all dress sense and all idea of comedy, I don't know, but they certainly did suss out how to do interiors. And I've got to say that the feel inside this SC, well, it's just the best interior that I've ever experienced. Some of the materials might be a bit of an odd match, but that aside, the feel is just so solid. And it's things like the opening for the stereo, the cup holders, really special, lets you know that you're buying something very exclusive and very expensive.
We don't stop.
So what about the roof? Well, a car this classy ain't gonna have a creased up bit of cloth in the boot. Oh no. If you are tempted to rush out and buy one, you'll have to wait till next year, because all 250 UK models were sold at the Geneva show. Yeah, Chief, park it up with you, mate. Been trying to find a space all day.
Ferrari, just the name rings with history. Whether it's Michael Schumacher winning another race, or childhood memories of a poster on your wall. But even Ferrari dreamers have to grow up one day, and maybe when they do, they dream about a grown-up Ferrari. The 456 was first introduced in 1992 and was Ferrari's first car designed for the 21st century. A modern interpretation of the traditional 2+2, the 456 was also the first modern Ferrari to revert to a front-engined rear-wheel drive configuration. And that, importantly, is what makes it grown up. It allows extra space for passengers and their luggage. So you might say that this is Daddy's Ferrari. Oh good. Who's the daddy? I've never actually been sure about the 456, either the looks or the idea of it. And then I drove it, and it all changed. So if you, like me, are a doubter, let's just see if this experience changes your mind. I'll tell you one thing for a start. Nothing I have ever driven has the instant sense of occasion that hits you when you climb on board this thing, and you do climb on board. Now, just because this is the grown-up Ferrari, don't let that fool you into thinking it's sedate, and because it's not by a long way. That is a Ferrari 5.5 litre V12 up front there, pushing out 442 brake horsepower, which means 0 to 60 is achieved in just over 5 seconds, and the top speed, 187 miles an hour. Thank you. It's really difficult to explain in absolute terms when you get to this level of stratospherically expensive car, just why it's worth it. It is worth it. I know it's worth it. I just can't say exactly why. And boy, this is a very, very expensive motor. Over £170,000. It is the most expensive Ferrari you can buy. Mind you, there's a couple of good reasons why you might pay a bit more. And it's these 2 extra seats in the back. I'm in the back seat of a Ferrari. I can have my mates here. That's incredible. Of course, there are those who'll sit there saying, "Ah, well, you see, front engine, rear wheel drive, it's nothing to a mid-engine layout." Really? I'd like to see you test the limits of this thing. Oh yeah, it is incredible. It's just an amazing driving experience. Again, I can't tell you why it's worth the money, but somehow it is. It's impossibly direct, immediate response from every input through the steering wheel without being twitchy. It feels purposeful, it's actually really comfortable. There's a gentle amount of body roll which I didn't expect to find, but it is so perfectly controlled. I have absolute confidence in this machine. There is an amazingly sophisticated traction control system, and there is an off button. And I'm going to leave it alone. Very expensive car. Most 456s are sold in automatic form, and before you gasp, it's not actually that surprising. This is, after all, a four-seater, practical Ferrari. This, though, is a manual version, 6-speed, with, of course, the traditional Ferrari gate, giving you that clack, clack between gear changes. It's gorgeous. I want to marry it. Now, let's face it, no matter how many nice things I say about this car, Ferrari aren't going to let me keep it. I've got to find something to criticise. Find a fault. Find a fault, something to criticise. Well, if there was going to be one criticism, it's more a criticism of me, if I'm honest. It's the fact that it doesn't scream Ferrari. So I've blown 170 odd G's on a car, and it's discreet. I want loud and brash. I'm just too vulgar for this car, and that's my fault, not the car's. There are those fanatical purists who dislike the new breed of well-behaved supercars, but let's face it, few of us have the ability of Michael Schumacher. The 456's pure usability means you can look forward to driving the car and enjoy it instead of frightening the living daylights out of yourself. In my years as a motoring journalist, I have never changed my mind so completely about a car. The 456 is my new fave Fezzer. Hooray! Ferrari will be chuffed.